Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, the moment you've all been waiting for, the incomparable Richard Hite.
All right, are we having fun tonight?
Yeah!
Okay, well, now, as she just said, you know, my name is Richard, and I usually go by the nickname Rich. But, you know, with the name Richard, I feel really fortunate not to be much older than I am. Because I don't know how many of you remember this, but in the past, men 20 or more years older than me who were named Richard were usually known by the nickname Dick. And as we all know, that word has taken on other connotations now. But I work in archives, so I have a chance to handle a lot of old documents. And there was one letter I read a number of years ago that, you know, it had particular significance to me in that regard. It was written in the 1930s by a middle-aged man named Richard. He had a teenage son named Richard. And he was writing to a friend of his who also had a son named Richard. And after the customary opening greetings, as would be expected, he started writing about his son. And so he wrote to his friend, you know, you would not even recognize my Dick now. He's grown 6 inches in just the last year. And I'm sure, you know, if your Dick hasn't already grown just as much, he will soon enough. My Dick is just as tall as I am now, so nobody can call us Big Dick and Little Dick anymore. And, you know, that would have been enough if it had stopped right there. But then he starts reminiscing. And he goes on to write, you know, I'll never forget when you and your family visited when the boys were 5 years old. My Dick had so much fun playing with your Dick that week. For days afterwards, all he was asking was when he could play with your Dick again. George and his family came for a visit later that same summer, and, you know, I encouraged him to play with George's Dick, but, you know, when a 2-year age gap is really too much when kids are that young. George's Dick was just too small for him at that time. But, you know, when you think about how tall George is, I'm sure that in 2 or 3 years from now, George's Dick will be significantly bigger than either of ours. Okay, so I think by now you all realize why I'm glad that I'm not stuck with that nickname. But, you know, I want to talk about the very first performance I gave. It's been about 1.5 years ago now at the Sweet Little Variety Show, which is the second Thursday of every month in downtown Providence. Great event. But that was a big night for me for more reasons than one. Not just because it was my first live performance in comedy, but it was also the night that I came out of the closet and revealed to the world that I'm straight. Yeah, that's right. The guy who came to Rhode Island, became a regular at Gay Bingo, and then got involved in the marriage equality movement is straight. Now, of course, I talked to a lot of my friends back home, and you know, I told them, you know, for example, about Gay Bingo, the fact that it raises money for AIDS victims and their families, and the other things it does. But this one guy in particular only wanted to know one thing. All he was asking was if at Gay Bingo, if any of the guys there ever hit on me. And so I told him, well, no, but women don't hit on me. Why would I think men would? But, you know, the real icing on the cake in all this is, you know, I think about all the gay men I've gotten to know in the last several years. You know, some of them have talked about how they had girlfriends in high school or college. Some of them, you know, even got married and had kids before they came out. And, you know, they're divorced now, but the ones I've talked to, you know, have good relationships with their kids, and some of them are even grandfathers by now. And, you know, I'm happy for these guys, I really am. But the thing that I just keep wondering is, what is it with all these gay guys having better luck with women than I ever did? Should I pretend to be gay? But then again, you know, maybe this was never a revelation to anybody. Maybe I never had anybody fooled. After all, it was only about the 3rd or 4th time I went to Gay Bingo that I was walking back to my table, and the host stopped me and said, "You're straight, right?" And I was just standing there looking and was thinking, well, yeah, but how did you know that? Last time I looked in the mirror, I didn't have the word straight stamped on my forehead. So I was telling another one of my friends out of town about that, and his reaction was, well, she probably assumed that no gay man would ever be as slovenly a dresser as you are. Okay. So, anyhow, all right, well, now I'm going to tell you all something that I know is going to come as a huge shock. I'm not a native of Rhode Island. And, I don't have to tell you that for somebody from a background like mine, coming here was a bit of an adjustment. Never forget the first day I was here walking down the streets of downtown Providence and happening to notice two guys across the street from each other, and one of them yelled to the other one, "How are you?" I'm standing there thinking, how are you? Oh, okay, I get it. How are you? To me, I hear, how are you? And I'm thinking the 50th state. And then, if you're looking for a grocery store here and you're not from here, people are telling you about different possibilities. Well, try telling the difference between shawls and shores. You can't do it. And then, after a while, I'd hear somebody say, "Come on, let's go potty." I hear that, and I'm thinking, well, if you've got to go to the restroom, go right ahead. I don't particularly want to go with you. But I've gotten used to it now, I have to say. I finally learned the rule of thumb is if I hear the R, it shouldn't be there, and if I don't hear it, it should be. And then, of course, there's the asking directions thing. I was told about that my first week on the job. That I'd be told, okay, turn left where McDonald's used to be, turn right where Dunkin' Donuts used to be. But I have to admit I don't get that very often, and I think I know why, because I've got a built-in response if anybody ever actually tried to tell me that. All I've got to say is, do I sound like I know where anything used to be around here? But I don't want to give anybody the feeling that I'm complaining. Rhode Island's got its quirks. But then I have to compare it to where I came from. My hometown is Godwin, North Carolina, or perhaps more appropriately, God lost. Anybody out there listen to Garrison Keillor ever?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you know his line about his hometown of Lake Wobegon, that's the views from Lake Wobegon, where all the men are good looking, all the women are strong, and all the children are above average. For my hometown, that's the news from Godwin, North Carolina, where all the men are ugly, all the women are psychotic, and all the children are in remedial classes. Now, my home, Godwin, North Carolina, the last I knew, the population of the town was 112 people. And I don't have to tell you that in a town that small, you have to be pretty creative to come up with means of entertainment. Now, I had a great aunt who had her own special way. She always kept 2 years worth of calendars hanging on a nail behind her bedroom door. And any time that any couple in the area was first known to go on a date or be seen together at some social function, she marked their names on that day on the calendar. And then any weddings, she'd always mark those dates. And then here's the reason for the 2 years worth of calendars. Any newly married couples, she would always mark the day that their first child was born and then count the number of months that had gone by since the wedding. Well, she lived to be almost 90. And I'll never forget being at the funeral on the night before she was buried. She had 2 daughters that were greeting everyone. And one of them, the daughters, was always pretty outspoken, and I didn't always agree with her, but this was one occasion she really hit the nail right on the head. Standing beside her mother's open casket, greeting people, at one point she looked down and said, "That's the first time I've seen Mama with her mouth shut in 50 years. But at least that means of entertainment was fairly safe compared to some things that some other people came up with. Like there was a town about 5 miles away from Godwin called Wade. Made Godwin look like Wade looked like a thriving metropolis next to Godwin. It had about 500 people or so. My dad always took me there for us to get our haircuts because there was no barber shop in Godwin. But there was a guy there who ran a store and also farmed. He was pretty prominent. His name was Leo. And in addition to that, all his life he'd been in and out of trouble with the law for things like bootlegging and assault, and rumor had it he'd even gotten away with murder a couple of times. I never knew if that was true or not. But what he was most known for was his Christmas celebrations. For years, every Christmas Eve, he would ride around the whole area throwing lit sticks of dynamite out the window of his pickup. But there was one Christmas that apparently he managed to hit the top of the cab with one of these sticks. It rolled knocked it out of his hand, rolled under the seat of the pickup, and before he could get to it, boom. Needless to say, that was his last Christmas celebration. Now, something that dramatic, brings out the poet in me. And I'm sure that no poem in the English language has been spoofed more than this one, but hey, I'm going to give my version anyway. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all over Wade, not a bullet was flying, no one wielding a blade. White trash children nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of BB guns danced in their heads. With me out of work and Dad out on bail, we were downing a 6-pack before he went back to jail. When way down the road there arose such a bang, I sprang to my window to see what was hanging. Flashes of light and window panes humming. There was no doubt now that Leo was coming. Every Yule Eve he did this, because this night he was sodden. Dynamite out his window from Wade down to Godwin. I covered my head and sprawled out on the floor, and then I heard something I hadn't before. A boom 4 times as loud as a hydrogen bomb. The windows all shattered, blew a hole in the jar. I looked back out the window, the pickup in flames. Leo had found his moment of fame. Body parts scattered, all riddled with glass, and death, as in life, his head up his ass. The sheriff and his deputies cleaned up the mess. Leo's last Christmas venture was his greatest success. And the sheriff exclaimed as he drove down the road, "Merry Christmas, friend Leo. You've lightened my load." Okay, yeah, that's my hometown. And I still hear from people there every now and again. And I got home one evening to a voice. I knew who it was. I knew the message was purely tongue-in-cheek and had an extremely exaggerated Southern accent. And I know that the idea of me exaggerating a Southern accent is ludicrous, but I'm going to do it anyway. I listened to this message and it said, "Rich Hite, you gay, loving, Yankee fraternizing, scum-sucking lowlife. You know what's good for you, boy. You won't show your face down here no more." So, I listen to this message and I think about it, and I'm thinking, not show my face in my hometown anymore. I'm trying to find a negative in that. And I gotta be honest, I'm still thinking. So hey, Providence, my adopted hometown, love you, baby.